Hi, I'm Brandon Reyes with True Ball Release and Excel Sights, and today we're going to go over advanced instructions on how to adjust your HBX release. The HBX contains a lot of advanced technology, and with that becomes new ideas in adjusting and making the release fit for you. So, to begin our instructions, we want to make sure that everybody's familiar with the set screws and the way the set screws work in adjusting your release. On the top here is our travel adjustment screw, and on the side here is our lock screw for the travel adjustment screw. Note, never remove the travel adjustment screw or the lock screw on your HBX release, because there is a nylon ball that is smashed underneath the lock screw, preventing thread damage to the travel adjustment screw. If you remove the travel adjustment screw or the lock screw completely, the nylon ball will be lost. So initially what we want to do is take our set screw, travel adjustment screw here on top, and take it all the way down to the bottomed out position. With that, I want to make sure that there's a little bit of resistance on that from that lock screw to ensure that our adjustments are going to be as fine as possible. So now the next step in setting our HBX release is to back the set screw on top of the release here off 1 1/4 turn. Once we've done that, we want to grab a string, preferably a string and not your actual bow, to find the click location. Now when I pull with my 2 fingers here on the release, I should hear a click. In this instance, I do not. If I put my 3rd finger on the release and start applying pressure, I heard a click. And then the release fired. So with that, that means that I need to add a little bit of that 1 1/4 adjustment back into my release to find my said click location. So I'm going to give it about 1/8 of a turn clockwise, and again repeat the steps by pulling the string with my release and just my index finger and my middle finger. So pull the release on the rope, and you'll hear distinctly, if you pull with your index and middle finger, that is our click location. Now on this particular HBX release, that is 1 1/8 turn from the bottomed out position. So if I'm going to shoot with a click on my HBX release, I need to be from that point and counterclockwise up to 2 1/2 turns from the bottomed out position for this HBX release to function. If I go beyond 2 1/2 turns, then my release is going to bypass the click. Some people feel that it may be, or it may, the release may feel like that it has lost the click. It is simply just out of adjustment. If you were to back this out, this set screw, the travel adjustment screw, out too far, it essentially is just removing itself from contact with this sear mechanism. So if I back this particular release out, we found the click location at 1 1/8 turns. If I back this release out 1/4 of a turn and I try it on my string loop, essentially what I'm going to have is a long distance to get to my click and then a short fire after the click. Now the farther I go out with the travel adjustment screw, the more that is going to change. And once I get to a certain extent, that scenario is going to flip-flop. It's going to be real fast to the click and real slow distance after the click before the release will fire. And in doing so, click and then slow after the click. In doing so, in adjusting your release like that, it's going to require a lot of the same muscle memory and the muscle speed movement shot after shot to get a very consistent pattern. So this release is a great training device for yourself or for whoever's going to shoot this in getting the proper muscle speed shot after shot because if you don't, your timing on your shot is going to change from arrow to arrow. So remember that when adjusting it. Small adjustments make big difference in timing on the HBX release. Now that I've found my said click location and I've backed it off counterclockwise to adjust my release with a click, to get the release with no click, you simply go the other direction. So in that situation, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my 1 1/8. You always want to remember that 1 1/8 measurement for this particular HBX, and it may be different from a backup release that you may have, but always remember that 1 1/8 for this particular release. I would suggest, maybe writing it on the release aid somewhere, or writing in a notebook to, know that HBX 1 is 1 1/8 turns from the bottom. So I'm going to take my travel adjustment screw all the way down, and now we're going to set the release with no click. So I'm going to back it off the 1 1/8 turn, and that's going to be my click location. So now I'm going to go clockwise with my travel adjustment screw on top here. And if I go approximately, 1/8, that's going to start my no click location all the way down to about 1/8 turn from bottom. 1/8 turn from bottom is super fast, and if somebody wants to shoot it that way, it can be done, but it's going to be super fast, and I would definitely test it on a string bow to prove that it's going to hold the weight of the bow and not misfire. So now I'll be without a click. Now that speed can change if it's too fast or too slow by simply adjusting this travel screw all the way down to 1/8 from bottom. However, always remember this, the release aid generally comes with the 15-pound spring installed. There is also a 4-pound spring in the package that will give you lighter settings than the 15-pound spring, and if it's still not light enough for you, you can completely remove either spring to get a faster setting if you so desire. So remember that the spring changes are also going to be available should you need to make your release faster, and that's simply done with this set screw by removing it, dropping in your spring of choice, or no spring at all. So now, if I'm 1/8 from bottom, I'll be no click, and my release should be super fast. So remember that when you're trying to set it up, if you want it super fast, clockwise location after, if you're in the no click side of the click location that you found, or if you are trying to go with a click, your adjustments are going to be counterclockwise to make it faster. Now, one last thing to point out that's very important, I kind of touched on it a moment ago, is one release and the click location could be different from another. They're all mechanical release aids, and it's hard to make them super identical. However, with that being said, if you have two separate HBX releases, one may be at 1 1/8 turn like our HBX here, and you have another one that perhaps is at 1 1/4 turn or 1 1/2 turns off and bottom, that's fine. Don't be alarmed. That release is going to function. The adjustments are going to function just as you want them to do. However, remember, if you've set your release at that 1 1/8 turn, and then you've gone back and added a 1/2 turn in your HBX, and that's the feel that works for you, if you have a 1 1/8 and then you put a 1/2 turn in, and then you have another release that's 1/2 turn, and you put a 1/2 turn adjustment in that as well, your releases are going to feel about the same timing. And we'll flash an illustration of this up on the screen so you can have a better understanding. However, we just want you to know that if one release varies slightly from another, that is okay, and your releases will function properly. With that, I think that is all the information that I need to share with you. I hope that you find the click location easily enough with your HBX release, and if you can't, feel free to call us here at the office or visit us at www.truball.com and ask any questions you need. We'll be happy to help.